Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning from wherever you are. I'm Swayam, and today I'm going to present a session about augmenting an organization's Power BI adoption journey through Center of Excellence. In this session, mostly I'm going to share my experiences and learnings while working with all different organizations, adoption strategies, and everything. Before that, quickly introducing myself. I am Syangprova Sinha. I am currently a program manager at Microsoft. I work with the Power BI customer advisory team, which is part of the product team. And we generally are part of product team, engineering team who are more customer facing. We talk to different enterprise organizations who deal with Power BI extensively. They have more usage, understand their strategy on how they want to drive their adoption, try to understand what kind of blockers they have, maybe able to resolve them with the help with our direct contacts in product engineering team, right? Prior to Microsoft, I worked with an FMCG giant in a dedicated global Power BI Center of Excellence team. I was leading the team from India. I've basically dedicated 7 years of my career. It has been a fantastic journey, let me tell you, and contributed from building the team from scratch. Creating quite an efficient COE culture there. Not very ideal, but still quite efficient, I would say. And turning its Power BI platform as one of the largest implementations in Microsoft, right? Currently in my role, as I said, I'm also in touch with many organizations, helping them and guiding them in their Power BI adoption journey. Let me tell you, I don't have any guiding documents. Microsoft doesn't have any guiding documents on COE as such. We do have implementation document. We do have an adoption framework. I am going to take a lot of points from there and how we have actually utilized those same guidances that's available, those same documentation that's available, a little bit tweaked and then implemented in my earlier organization. I'm going to share my experiences there. So yeah, I will be stopping in between few slides. I'll cover a few slides, stop in between for a quick discussion. If you have any Q&A, if you want to share your experience, you're most welcome. I'd love to hear you out. Okay, good. Quickly going through the agenda, won't take much time. We'll be discussing about what should be the main motivations behind building a COE, a Center of Excellence team in an organization, in your organization. We'll also discuss about, is Center of Excellence really needed for an organization? And we'll discuss more about that. We will also discuss quickly about what are the points that needs to be, what are the factors that needs to be considered for planning a Center of Excellence. Some of the Center of Excellence structure approaches, the whole journey as such, how will the journey look like, different responsibilities the COE needs to take or should take. There's no specific guidance. Again, it's not a one-size-fit-all kind of thing. So there might be different responsibilities a COE, an organization might want a COE should take and some not. So we'll discuss about that. The whole team, how does the team look like? In this specific slide, I will be talking about my experience, working with how did my team look like in my earlier organization. And of course, how would you measure whether COE is doing all right? How would you measure the COE success? And of course, last but not least, key learnings to take away. I have actually been privileged that I've been working with other organizations that I have learned, right? Okay, let's start then. Good. Let's talk about the motivation for a COE. Before that, let's start with understanding why Power BI has been adopted as maybe a strategic tool, reporting tool, or in any way a end user business analytics tool by an organization. The reason might be, as was for my previous organization, it had aligned to the data strategy for moving to cloud, specifically Azure. So the whole data platform was moving from on-premise to cloud. It was moving to Azure, and as an organization, it made sense that Power BI be the be the end user analytics tool or reporting tool. So it just aligned with that, right? A lot of organizations would also say they understand the capabilities of Power BI are huge, right? Power BI has been on top of Gartner Quadrant. Microsoft as such has been on top of Gartner Quadrant, and the features that's available in Power BI is so apt, so fitted for self-service analytics, right? And it absolutely aligns with what enterprise also wants and a self-service solution also wants, right? And price-wise, which is one of the most important point, maybe price-wise, Power BI is a lot better than other tools, right? In a situation like this, where a tool has been promoted from top leadership, say it has been a strategic tool, throughout the organization, I believe adoption generally catches up with time when it comes from the top leadership, when it says that, okay, Power BI will be the strategic tool going forward, people slowly try to utilize it in an organization where data culture is not very prevalent, but still going to be prevalent because every other organization works with data in one form or other. I've seen even end users start downloading Power BI, just as simple as that. They start downloading Power BI in their machine and import data, which is quite intuitive there, and start building reports and dashboards, right? Another reason why Power BI gets adopted is because word of mouth. A lot of people use Excel, and when they hear is Power BI as an advanced version of Excel, sorry, they actually are more eager and more ready to try out, right? So they go ahead, download Power BI desktop and start using it, and they will see a lot of features already is like Excel. So the adoption starts like that, right? With time, when the licensing strategy is actually finalized, I've seen organizations with E5 licenses tend to grow on Power BI adoption more than the people organization who do not have. But at the end of the day, if you have a licensing strategy fixed, Power BI adoption grows more, right? Now, as Power BI adoption grows, you would see, and people have free reign to the new tool, while at first organizations are very much eager, teams are very much eager to get Power BI solutions implemented in their team. At a certain point of time, they hit a threshold. Threshold is because, and that threshold is because they might not be aware of many other features that are available. So that's an awareness issue. There might be because there have been bad practices going around, and there are a lot of data breaches, data culture not being maintained throughout, governance issues, etc. Now, due to which there will be resulting in more data silos, misuse of the tool, poor collaboration, sharing Power BI file through email, just an example. Now, so as the reporting needs mature, users were unaware on how to achieve certain scenarios, might be lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, and eventually they would start blaming the tool. And it happens with every organization. Certain business scenarios might not be achievable. They will say, end users will start saying Power BI is not the right tool. So how do we resolve it? So, okay. So giving the context, I now actually talk about this slide. The point that I highlighted a little while ago are the main motivations of COE. right? So I will talk about uneven adoption, dysfunctional data culture, unacceptable chaos or misuse of the tool as such, and of course, delivering the potential of the tool itself. Now, misuse of technology is because when there are suboptimal designs and implementation, when the solutions in a product cause immense harm to the solution itself. I have put tens and tens of visuals in a report, and there are lots of work, time, and effort involved in creating that dashboard, right? But because I've not implemented best practices, there's rework, waste of time and effort, and of course, opportunity and credibility loss. This not only comes from untrained, unaware users, it's also because of ill-disciplined business users. I've seen a lot of business users know how the tool works, but just because they are in a hurry, because time constraints, they do not implement the best practices from the start. And then, which results in rework later. Now, we've realized that even if there are tons of learning materials out there, that would not help. There has to be a way that those learning materials out there are channelized to proper user personas in a definite way. So who will do this? Who will channelize these learning materials for those end users? I'll put that question out there. Let's talk about dysfunctional data culture. Most of the users that have adopted Power BI are Excel users, right? They are exporting data from Excel. It's importing data from Excel into Power BI, creating dashboards, suppose, sharing with a third user. And what does the third user do? The third user also exports the data from Power BI and creates an Excel out of it, right? This continuous cycle creates a lot of data silos, and we know about this. On a larger scale, you have larger enterprise scale storage layers, data warehouses, data lakes. I have seen business teams taking data out of those data storages, store in Power BI, and then again out of that Power BI export into Excel. And from that same Excel, create third report, Power BI reports. And that continuous, that cycle goes on, that process goes on like forever, creating data silos everywhere with every other smaller business team, right? Inconsistent use of vocabulary and metrics also leads to confusion, because I might have a data set which has some column names, some specific column names, and that data set is actually very correct. It can act as my single source of truth. However, the column names, the business names might work for one team, but might not work for another team, right? Eventually, with all these issues, business units, revert to old ways of reporting. And we know that Power BI does have capabilities to resolve these issues, but who will actually make the end user aware? Who will make the developers aware? I'll put the question there out again. Uneven adoption. Let's talk about that. Now, throughout the deployment of Power BI, it's vital to maintain communication between the business teams and the developers, right? I have seen cases where authors are not the solution authors are not able to deliver what the end users know about the solution. Or the other way around, I have seen authors putting up KPI key influences visuals, decomposition tree, but the end user doesn't know how to utilize them. Yes, because they haven't provided user guides. Yes, so some of the best practices they haven't implemented. Yes, that also might be the reason. It's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, right? Another example, how does the licensing work? I don't know whether I should use my premium capacity, whether I should request for a premium workspace or whether Pro is sufficient, right? So that's uneven adoption. That's lack of awareness, clear lack of awareness, lack of engagement between different teams. Delivering the potential of the tool. Now, Power BI as a tool has seen dramatic evolution in its scope, right? While some years ago it was a good reporting analytics platform, nice lightweight visualization tool, today's Power BI is completely different, right? It has data flows, XML read and write, advanced editing features, incremental refresh, and whatnot. It has become a comprehensive platform of delivering reliable, large-scale solutions. Cost efficient and effective, cost effective and efficient, yes. Now, as Power BI is evolving with its capabilities, think the way a solution can be achieved was achieved a few years back can be achieved more efficiently right now. So what would the existing solutions would do? The already existing solution needs to cope up with the new features that has come in, right? Consider an example. Earlier we had to have a clear all, apply all filter, right? Filter button. We had to create bookmarks, etc., and do all sort of changes. Right now, we already have a button which is available. Yes, you might not want to change, but a lot of features might need changes just to make them more efficient and usable, right? So those features need to be timely harnessed, otherwise they are missed cost saving opportunities. Right now, while I'm putting this motivation for COE, these issues, I would like to highlight who should be the exact point of contact who would be resolving these issues. Is it the business teams who should be ideally looking into the data, taking insights and helping on the decision support, or is it the developer team who are very busy in developing solutions? There has to be a central point of contact, a central point where a whole new level of engagement, communication, skill set, vision is there. Right now, that kind of team has to be a COE, right? Center of Excellence team. Now, I can name it Center of Excellence, or you can name it as a Business Intelligence COE. Name doesn't matter. What matters is who is going to resolve these issues, right? Who is the central point of contact for adoption, right? Who can make a positive impact? Who can put up a larger level of engagement, communication between different business teams, development teams, etc., to provide an wholesome enterprise and self-service solutions, right? Now, this concept of Center of Excellence has been in existence for a while now, right? And you know what, if you search a bit, you would find that Gartner has indicated that organizations with such kind of a BI competency center approach are able to grow and develop and utilize their resources better. In this case, Power BI better for achieving success for the tool. Now, now let's talk about, is Center of Excellence really needed for an organization? I've told you, COE is not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. It might not be required for an organization. For smaller organizations, I have seen with whom I'm working with, too, few of the organizations are very small in nature. They do not have extensive use of Power BI yet, or even larger organizations who do not have extensive use of Power BI yet. They might not want a dedicated COE right now. They might want it later on, but right now they might not want a COE. But COE always helps, right? A central team always helps. To actually get the best practices, get that level of communication from the start, and helps in better adoption and all the confusion later on, governance issues, data culture, prevalence issues, etc. Right. So while I won't say Power BI COE is really must for an organization, but this is something that organizations must consider at a certain point of time when they see that Power BI will be growing in their organizations going forward. Okay. Good. Let's talk about aspects to consider for a COE setup. right? Now, once an organization decides that a COE needs to be there, for better management and better adoption in our of Power BI in that organization, what are the factors to consider for a COE setup? You can see I have put up 4 points here: executive sponsorship, outsourcing responsibilities, deliver and support strategy, and funding for COE. These are just not limited to these 4 topics. There might be many more, but in our case, it is, in my case, I've seen these are the most important factors that needs to be considered, talked about, discussed in the leadership team, in the vision team, for starting to for teams who are looking to start for establishing a COE, right? The foremost of which is executive sponsorship. I believe this is a fundamental role and very key to the success of the COE program. Now, with a strategic vision in mind for the success of the tool, the executive sponsor should have enough credibility, authority, and influence in the organization, and who understands the organizational data culture, who understands how the tool would align to the data and analytics strategy going forward, right? Now, this executive sponsor is also responsible for approving the funding and, of course, evangelizing the need of the COE along with the COE lead. So, of course, they have executive sponsor is also responsible for outlining the business case for COE. Funding for a COE, it is the funding is a quite complex topic, I would say, and I would not like to delve into much except few points, and that it will be either centrally funded or business funded, right? I'm sorry about this. We will talk about this a little bit later in my slides, other slides, but at the end of the day, a COE might not be a revenue generating team, right? You don't expect a COE to be a revenue generating team. However, it can be in some way if your COE team is responsible for developing solutions, or your COE is responsible for managing premium capacities. There are scope to cross-charge different business teams with respect to the work that you do. So while I'm talking about funding, I will talk about deliver and support strategy. This is one of the fundamental topics that needs to be discussed before forming a COE, because while COE is not expected to deliver, it's not a delivery team, right? Delivery teams needs a different kind of mindset. It's a solution factory team, right? Where you might need to collaborate with different business teams. A different skill set is required. A team with different skill set is required. You need project managers. You need program managers. You need different technical leads, and of course developers. You might work with different vendors. You might work with different third parties for achieving different solutions. So COE might not be an ideal place, ideal team which can take over a delivery of the solutions. However, I have seen organizations where delivery is actually managed by COE. Again, support strategy. At the end of the day, Power BI is an end user tool, right? Now, similar to any other end user tool, it is exposed to tens of business users, hundreds of thousands of business users, and you might need a dedicated support team when some of the solutions break, some of the solutions not working, or even the product as a whole is not working. How would you take the support approach for different solutions? Either business teams, you might want the business teams to take over managing and doing the CI/CD for future purposes, for support and any kind of maintenance operations going forward. Or you might want to have a dedicated COE team who looks after all the managed solutions throughout the enterprise, right? Outsourcing responsibilities is a key thing, because you cannot have big COE team, a team with tens of people who is also delivering, supporting. You might need to outsource some of the roles and responsibilities. You might want to have a team, for example, only to manage and configure gateways for different business teams. You might have you might want to outsource different tenant admin responsibilities, or auditing, monitoring responsibilities to a third party. You might also want a third party with a knowledgeable third party is able to manage your premium capacities effectively, right? So you might want to decide what kind of responsibilities an organization would like to outsource, right? Okay. Okay. So these are the 4 main points that I wanted to touch upon. Before we go into the discussion slide, I would like to talk about how to structure a COE. Right now, in my earlier organization, I have seen a very much centralized structure. I worked in that central team, a global Power BI Center of Excellence team. We had a very small team. It was an SME, seven SMEs, a team of 7 SMEs, and we did not have any delivery team or support team. We had a different delivery model and a support model, which was overseen by 2 separate teams. We had a different gateway team also. So what did the central team do? It was only and only responsible for awareness, communication, and platform responsibilities. That's the only thing that COE team did. We had a very clear outline of what the COE would do in a large organization, and we tried to keep it limited. We tried to keep our responsibilities limited so that we can reach out to more and more business team and carry out the awareness side of things in more powerful way. Okay, now let's talk about the centralized structure. Let me tell you, Microsoft's adoption framework explains different structure approaches, which might make sense for different organizations. So if your organization is thinking about how to structure a COE or a central team for Power BI adoption, do have a look at the adoption framework in the guidance document, which is available. Due to my limited knowledge, because I've been working with two approaches, I'll be talking about only these 2. Centralized approach is where we worked mainly on managing standards, best practices, and of course, platform management. As I told you, we were not responsible for delivery of any solutions. However, during the start, we were responsible for doing some pilot projects, even during its stability phase, which I'll explain more. We did a lot of new business teams would come forward asking for help, and we did try to do certain POC, certain pilot for different business teams to get going, to get a pace, to make people understand how Power BI works, and then of course hand it over to the business team and let them deliver the full solution to their end users, right? And it absolutely worked for us. But we understood that due to complexity of the organization, and because we had to manage this adoption globally, the responsibilities were overwhelming, and we were not able to, I think, cover all the time zones. Yes. On some cases, it led to quick escalations due to lack of efficient communications, or lack of people reaching out to different business teams. And we've realized that COE team might not be equipped with enough resources to this. So there was a bandwidth issues. There's always bandwidth issues with resources, because we did work with a lot of things, a lot of business teams engagements. So there were issues in centralized approach too. Now, with time, after realizing that we were facing issues in a centralized structure, we were moving to a federated kind of structure. And how did the federated structure work? Federated structure would involve either specific members of business teams embedded in COE, or COE team members embedded in different business teams. So you might have hundreds of business teams. An organization might have hundreds of business teams. It might not be it might not be possible to have hundreds of specialized COE team members. So it's rather convenient to have a representative coming from different business teams and working with, collaborating with COE. So Power BI experts, Power BI champions, who understands how their business would work, how their domain would work, along with understanding of the tool and the technology, working in collaboration with COE to deliver the best of the solution in Power BI. That's what the federated structure look like. I've seen federated structure works fine. It works quite better with business teams, because then business teams don't have to reach out every other time. They have enough resources. They know they can trust COE for any important things related to platform, auditing, monitoring, governance are taken care in one way or other by the COE. However, if they need any kind of help with respect to best practices, awareness, collaboration, they would definitely get help from COE, right? Okay, now that we have talked about structuring a COE, let's take a small break and go to a discussion slide. Do we have any questions already? I can take a couple of questions for the next 4 minutes, maybe.
None so far in the chat.
Okay. Okay, good. I hope this was useful. We will go through more content, and I think this will be very, very helpful to all of us. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear if you have any questions. But for now, let's move on then. Okay, let's have a look at the journey. The slides look odd, but yeah, let me put up the whole slide here. All right. Okay, good. Now let's go through the journey that a COE needs to, take from its foundation to its stability and nurturing phase. Okay. Now, once you have decided the aspects of a COE, once you have decided, for the structure, now we would need to ascertain some a journey for COE, a vision and a mission for COE that you would like to continue for the next few years, right? Now, on the foundation phase, you definitely need a charter and a roadmap. Who will set that? Maybe you don't have a COE team yet. The executive sponsor and the COE lead might be responsible to set up the initial charter and roadmap, to set up the initial vision and mission on which the whole team will work. They are also responsible to define the RNRs, which is roles and responsibilities. They would like to understand what kind of responsibilities will COE have, and with respect to that, what kind of skill set do they need, right? They might need a platform manager who will manage and govern the whole platform. They might need tenant admins. They might need a lot of SMEs. They might need an adoption lead, and we'll talk more about those roles and responsibilities later. But definition of those responsibilities and rules are, well-structured definition is needed, right? Now, drafting the COE charter and roadmap is all about realizing the range of functions that the COE will do. And of course, it is based on the resource and staff available. You might want to draft how the delivery will be handled, how the capacity management will be handled. For example, gateway monitoring will be handled, how the licensing will be handled. Of course, prioritize them. You would also like to put up a initial training and upskilling plan, maybe, right? You might want to create milestone, however you would like to be flexible with them, because that will help you focus on the quick wins. Why not create, for example, a self-paced training with the videos that's already available over the internet instead of creating our own? Why not quickly consolidate all the best practices available out there, create a document with all the links, or a SharePoint site with all the links, and share it with your initial user base. Those kind of quick wins, if you can do, let's do it in the foundation phase, right? Utilize and channelize the materials already available, webinars, YouTube channels, why not? And of course, you would like to plan what you would like to do in the next few years. How would you go ahead with the training and upscaling? What would your scope of engagement with different business teams look like? Right? Is your scope of engagement with, suppose, the cybersecurity team or the infosec team, on various kind of data protection issues, on monitoring, governance issues, or auditing points, right? Another example, suppose you would like an external tool to be approved for Power BI. You definitely have to go through InfoSec, right? So you might want to understand what kind of engagement would you like to have with the InfoSec team going forward with such kind of points, right? This phase might be like a soft launch mode for Power BI, for releasing a soft launch mode for Power BI. And while organizations is taking baby steps in doing these, you would definitely also like to understand what are the learnings from it, because learning from the foundation phase would provide you the ways to put up your new vision, or even a plan for the stabilization phase later on, right? Let's talk about the stabilization phase. I think this phase is the longest phase of the journey. And I would say it's practically a never-ending one, because we keep learning, we keep implementing. I think everything in the stabilization phase is all about how you carry out your activities that you have planned in your foundation phase, and of course tweaking your go forward plan with respect to the learnings that you have gathered in your foundation phase. You might have understood, okay, just releasing best practices is not enough. You might need to divide or categorize your best practices with respect to different personas. Best practices for sharing might not be needed for your developers, right? So you might want to have a different kind of best practices for your developers. So take those learnings, implement them in the stabilization phase. And of course, that goes on, keeping on learning new things, and continuous improvement, business improvement is what we say. You would definitely right now would like to have a concrete training and upskilling plan. This is very, very important, and an important responsibility that COA is going to handle, because awareness is one of the biggest motivators of COE, as we have seen, and one of the biggest pain points that organizations are facing currently. Every other organization, believe me, is asking for, can we have a training on Power BI? Can we have a dedicated training on this, or Power Query maybe? Can we have a dedicated training on data flow? Yeah, so you would definitely like to understand the pulse of different business teams where they are lacking. Maybe one of the business teams would not like to use Power Query at all, because all the transformations are taken care at the transformation layer, and what they have is the goal layer where you can just consume and report. In some cases where data is taken from Excel or maybe any other raw data source, you might need a lot of transformations in Power Query. You might need that business team to have a Power Query dedicated session to understand where each business team needs awareness on, guidance on, and then put up a training plan accordingly. Of course, reuse and reutilize the materials as you go ahead. You would also like to standardize the process and guidelines. Let your users know what are your tenant settings, for example. I have seen a lot of issues coming in, as in the business teams do not know whether they are allowed to publish to web. They are not able to publish to web, for example. But the organization might have taken that decision to disable it, right? So end users do not know. You might want to collate all your document, all your settings and configurations of your tenant settings, whichever you need to actually whichever information you need to relay. Please do have those standardized process guidelines on how can people request for pro, for example, how can people request for license. Have that documents created in a knowledge base and share it with the end users. I've seen such kind of documentations when they are created and made it available to the end users through different channels. It has reduced the support issues to more than half. Before we create my earlier organization, before we created these documents, we used to be like pinged, emailed, and being bothered for every smallest of issues, like how do I install Power BI desktop? But currently we do, not currently, but at the end of the day, when we had created all these documents and put it up there in a central site, we've seen the issues, cutting down to half, more than half actually. People are able to read through them. People are able to share it with other people, and you don't have to be bothered with the smallest issues. You can, the COE team can work on more important things, right? Research and innovation is very important. As new and new features come in Power BI, it's important that the COE team is aware of what is coming and how can they be effectively and efficiently applied in different business teams, right? For example, the data protection the data protection labels that have been announced GA. Why not, do a small POC of how that works and, relate to the different finance team who needs it, who have been asking for it like forever. Why not activate the sensitivity labels from global admin side to leverage those sensitivity labels in Power BI? So research and innovation comprises of everything that revolves around new features, relaying those new features to different business teams for different kind of scenarios, right? The stabilization phase, I think, also the team needs to ensure that governance and security policies and guidelines are in place. They can start with regular monitoring, auditing, and tracking of utilization and adoption, right? Making sure that Power BI is utilized to its potential through research, as I said. Drafting templates, frameworks, and architectural patterns. Maybe what we did, let me give you another example. What we did was putting up a report for best practices. So we collated every link that we could find on best practices, good links, which led to Microsoft documents, maybe blog articles, etc., and collate them in a Power BI report and share it with the entire organization, right? Evangelize it in different channels that we have, and make more and more impact. Yeah, putting up drafting templates of how coloring templates, theme templates for different business team, guiding different business team to how to create their own, so that they don't come to Power BI every time, Power BI COE for every time to ask for different templates, what should be the color theme, etc. Different business teams might have different logos, right? For that matter, different countries might have different definitions of red. Red in other for example, in India, red is like a danger, or maybe in different parts of the world, red means something, that something needs attention. However, in China, we saw that red was actually a good sign somewhere. So you might need to have different themes for different business teams, right? Why not give them the liberty to change it, right? Guide them how to do it. Now, let's talk about operationalize phase. Now, operational phase, remember, when we go to the operationalize or optimize phase, that doesn't means the previous phase is ended. What do I mean by optimized phase is whatever standardized process and guidelines we've established. With time, there will be uh, a lot of improvements that needs to be done, right? So in this phase, what you would like to do is talk with the business team, take feedback, understand what's working out, what's not, take the learnings and maybe relate to the your Microsoft account team or your team who works with COE, Microsoft team who works with COE, relay your feedback as much as possible, right? And with the different scenarios that you understand from different business team, make your framework more developed, more agile, more flexible, right? You would also like to track and measure your KPIs for success. While COE might not be a revenue generating, but you would definitely like to show how COE is making an impact in the adoption, right? So you, even for teams motivation, you would like to have tracking and measuring the KPIs for success, right? Strengthening the learning and adoption plan. In earlier stage, you would have planned end-to-end training and upskilling. But right now, you might need to understand how can you get targeted training for different set of users. As I said, you might want to understand what new users need to learn, what intermediate users need to learn, what advanced users you need to learn, right? And of course, because optimization phase is where you do a lot of unlocking for advanced features too. Advanced users needs to be more and more capable for putting up efficient solutions, right, and processes. You have to engage more and more with cloud teams, with cyber security teams to increase the security, to increase data governance, and of course, coordination between different teams, right? I think optimize is also a phase where, and I'm talking from my experience, like optimize is operational phase is also a phase where you can think about migrating from different other business tools or reporting tools to Power BI, like we did from Tableau to Power BI. When we saw that our platform is much more in a stable state, at that point of time, we thought of moving into, totally into Power BI, closing our SSRS reports to Power BI, moving from Tableau to Power BI. You would like to have that kind of planning too in this, right? In this phase. Good. Let's talk about the scope of responsibilities that a COE can have now. I've talked about a lot about scope, what the responsibilities should have, but they were not very clear. So let's just quickly talk about this. Now, apart from, whether you have decided whether COE will deliver solutions or even be a support team, COE's main responsibility should involve around how to run community of practice. How would you have channels of engagement, right? So running community of practice is is important. You would like to have sessions, office hours, maybe with different business teams. You might want to have targeted trainings, as I said. You might like to have Yammer channels. You might want to have a Teams channel where all your questions are posted, and those channels can be, sustainable, self-sufficient, right? You not only COE team is contributing. Different business users who are Power BI champions, who have faced such similar scenarios, you can reach out to them through those channels, right? Platform governance and premium management is all about how you manage and your tenant, your Power BI platform, how you manage your premium capacities if an organization has, and of course, efficiently utilize them. You would not like, data sets in premium, which can actually suffice with a pro license. So why not do a regular audit of whether data sets really need premium or not. So those kind of premium management things, maybe you would like to cross charge on different premium capacities that are being used by different business teams. Internal planning activities. This responsibility is only specific to a COE team, which is all about planning what a COE will do. It's, whether it's reaching different milestones, what kind of engagement model, what kind of support model that you are planning for a COE team. Driving migration from legacy tools, as I mentioned, it might be legacy tools, it might be other third-party tool. This is the time when you can, this is a responsibility where COE team can also look into, right? Architecture and delivery support. Suppose your team, COE team does not have delivery responsibility, you would still need to work with the architecture team, you still need to work with different business delivery teams to understand, maybe to review, to audit, to do some performance tuning, and work with them to deliver an efficient solution at the end of the day, right? Research and innovation, as I said, is all about how you can implement the newest feature in a most cost-effective and efficient way. User support and license management. How are you handling the support issues? Are you asking all your users to raise Microsoft support ticket? No, right? You cannot do that. You cannot ask your users to raise support tickets even with the small. So you have to have a better management of how the smallest of issues are looked into, either through knowledge base or through having maybe a service now service support model. Okay, that's all. I think I've covered all the responsibilities. Let's move to the next slide. Yeah, let's stop. I think we do have a discussion slide now. Does anybody have any questions? I do have just a couple of slides and I think we should be able to finish time. Any questions?
There are no questions in chat.
Oh, super. Okay, good. Okay, we will also stop at the end maybe for Q&A, but let me move on to the next slide then. Okay, now the COE team is, as I mentioned, is absolutely how I had my team. I had a team where there was a COE lead, and he was the one with the vision, someone with the vision and mission, and who knows how to make the COE program successful, right? At the end of the day, while they might not be very technical in nature, they would definitely need to know how to make a program successful. COE's kind of program is a never-ending program, and the person who is leading it should have that vision on how this program can be successful, right? The adoption can be successful, the tool can be successful within different business teams, right? Platform manager, governing the whole Power BI platform, one who is responsible for sharing the guidelines and processes. We also have an adoption lead along with trainers, and of course, data architects and SMEs who might part-time work as trainers, might part-time work with different business teams to help them deliver, who also work on different research and innovation parts. So it might be a small team or a big team with delivery model into consideration. My team was very small. It was a team of 7 people, and we had these kind of responsibilities there, right? Good. What else? Let's quickly move to measuring the success. How do we do that? Now, measuring COE success during its initial phase might not be worthwhile. It takes a lot of time, I believe, a considerable amount of time, I should say, to understand and leverage the learnings and convert them into KPIs for success. What we did was about, as I mentioned, we reduced the customer support issues by half just by making our standardized process documents, guideline documents, best practices documents, and self-paced learning videos out there, making it available to the end user. We were able to reduce customer support issues. That can be one of your KPIs, right? With the number of published and processed templates, frameworks, architectural guidelines, or even knowledge-based articles can also be counted as a measure of success, right? And of course, you can also, you can also track the number of people who are reaching out or reading those articles, and taking feedback maybe. That's also an option. Number of training provided on different personas, on different topics, and of course, taking feedbacks from the training. What can be improved? What needs to be improved? How can different scenarios be involved in those trainings, or even maybe hands-on sessions? What's the impact? What's the feedback? Please do track them. Those are also a measure of success. Reaching out to different business teams to understand if how COE has helped, taking surveys, with different business teams also helps. Reduction in the usage of other reporting tools. While we saw that Power BI report usage was increasing, we also tracked how much user adoption was going on in other tools, Tableau, SSRS, we had MicroStrategy. We saw that while Power BI adoption was increasing, the other tools usage were dropping, and that became a KPI for success for us, a measurement for success for us, right? User adoption, of course, is one of the major points of success. Measuring points of success. How many consumers have increased over time? How many authors have increased over time? How many people are now sharing with? How many people are usage of certified datasets or promoted datasets, right? Because more and more people are using certified datasets. That means there are less and less data silos, right? So that can also be a measure of success. Community growth, engagement, member growth, how many people are actually replying to the questions posted by a business team, just not COE people. So you can track those. How many people are visiting your knowledge base? As I said, how many people are actually visiting a BI portal? They are in one way or other absolutely taking advantage of the awareness guidelines, processes that you are putting out there. So everything that you are putting out there are a leverage for you to measure your success. So I would say this is how we did it. There might be other points I might have missed. If you have any inputs for me, please, I would definitely like to hear you. Good. What's next? This is the last slide, and these are my key learnings. And they're pretty much what I've covered already, but I'll still repeat. I would say the most important thing is to understand what are the key motivators to build your Power BI COE. It's important because then it becomes very easy for you, for the whole team, for the COE team, to explain how COE team will be contributing in the adoption of the tool, in utilization of the tool, in how you can help different business teams leverage the tool to its utmost potential. Right. So understanding the motivation behind having a COE is very important. Drafting the charter and scope of engagement. You should have clear outline of what your roles and responsibilities are, how a COE will work, what's the engagement model with different business teams, with different architecture teams, cybersecurity, infosec team, etc., or enterprise architecture team, right? You definitely need to have skills and competencies, identify the skills and competencies that are required. And adoption, for example, an adoption lead might not be very technical in nature, but they definitely have to be good with people and good with communication, right? So, and your trainers might not need to have a deep level of understanding of how Power BI works internally, but they definitely need to be good with people, good with relaying the information, putting in layman terms, for example. Having a strong learning and development strategy. Just not have a strategy, just not have the training materials out there. Channelize it with respect to proper personas, with proper business teams requiring different kind of trainings, right? Track your KPIs, recognize and track your KPIs. The moment you start working on your vision and mission, start tracking your KPIs, I would say, slowly, and then put up a, you would understand how each and everything that CEO is doing is actually helping people out there for adoption, right? Communicate. I think this is the communicate with business teams, communicate with your authors, delivery staff, with your support teams, with Microsoft as such, with your Microsoft counterpartners, with your team itself. The COE team itself internally needs to communicate on training, etc. So everything is about how better you engage, how better you create your networking, or branding your COE. And of course, continuous business improvement. The things that you learn needs to be applied in your current framework, and of course changes needs to be made with your current in your current framework to accommodate the new scenarios, right, in future. Right. Composite models, for example, I've seen the moment composite models came in, we had to change a lot of architectural best practices, etc., and have to modify our guidelines with respect to how business teams can merge sources, for example. With composite model in view, we had to change our delivery strategy. For example, in organizations where CEO is also managing data sets, creation of data sets, they had to change their data set creation or delivery strategy too, right? So continuous business improvement is also key, right? Business learning is key, right? So that's all. Those are the 7 learnings that I can share with you. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much, Ben, and